And so to my dorm in the Black Sheep Hostel in Medellin. This is Mally from Denver, Colorado. Next day, Mally and I, and a young guy from Mexico, also staying at the Black Sheep, had a day out. First of all, we took the modern metro to the bus station. We got off the bus at the Piedra del Peñol, a 200-metre high granite monolith. It was a public holiday and there were hordes of people visiting. A short bus ride took us to the village of Guatapé, the object of our day out. This village is famous for the colourful bas-relief made of painted concrete on the lower halves of the walls. These started out as fairly simple geometrical designs, as in the one on the right. These days they tend to show more complex scenes and are more three-dimensional, as on the left. There's not much I can say about the following scenes in Guatapé, so I'm going to play one of my pleasant little songs to accompany some pleasant little pictures.
Slowly walking down the street, silver hair and swollen feet, no longer in their prime now. In strict routine, this is their way. They set off shopping every day. Two pensioners together, still walking close, still holding hands. It's 50 years among us since they made each heartfelt wedding vow. They didn't mean to take them lightly. Through good and bad times, smiles and tears, they stuck together down the years. Much too late to prize apart now. Still walking close, still holding hands.
When the three of us arrived back at the bus station in Medellin, it was beginning to get dark, and the lights of the city were beginning to twinkle on. That was my only day trip from Medellin, because next morning I arrived at the local airport situated within the city to take a flight to the Pacific coast in the Chocó region. My destination is Valle Solano, second from bottom. The tiny airport was hemmed in by tropical rainforest. Three of us off the flight were heading to El Valle, so we shared a Torito for the hour's drive. This was to be my home for the next 10 days, the Humpback Turtle Backpacker Hostel. You could hire a hammock, or get a bed complete with mosquito net. A healthy breakfast was included in the very reasonable price. I was to spend the next 10 days searching for wildlife subjects in the rainforest and along a beach. Surprisingly enough, this tree climbing crab was in the forest rather than on the beach. The humpback turtle faced directly onto the Pacific Ocean, so sunsets like this were something we saw every night. Before settling down to sleep, it's essential to make sure that the mosquito net fits properly around the bed. Directly in front of the hostel there was a large passion flower plant, and this passion flower butterfly female is looking for a leaf on which she can lay her eggs.
Okay,
We finally
so I've got
settled on this
where
one,
they're laying now.
not a leaf, but one of the tendrils. After an hour or so of steady work, the number of eggs had grown considerably. On a leaf down below, some minute, newly hatched caterpillars are eating their eggshells, their first meal. I'm a specialist on insect behaviour, but I can offer no explanation as to why this stilt-legged fly waves its front legs like this when no others are present. In the tropics, a lot of insects are not what they seem at first. This looks like a wasp, but it's actually a day-flying moth. Most days I walked into town to buy freshly baked cakes. One evening, a nearby hotel was releasing baby turtles that had been collected as eggs and hatched out. Eventually, after many years, the females will return to this same beach to lay their eggs. And so, as the last of the tiny turtles made their way into the sea, I made my way back to the humpback turtle. This small hermit crab was common on the beach and didn't go in the water, always living on the land. Hermit crabs don't have tough shells like most crabs. They live inside mollusk shells. These are investigating this empty shell to find out whether it will be a suitable home. But after a lot of probing, they seemed to decide it was too large for any of them. Colourful flowers are rare in rainforests. This is one of my favourites. I first saw it in Trinidad, where it's called hot lips. They're popular with passionflower butterflies, but their visits are very brief. Often they just investigate a flower and fly on. In 40 years as a professional wildlife photographer, I found that photographs of well-camouflaged insects sold very well. Can you see what I found here? Have you spotted it yet? The praying mantis. Have another look. I also saw this for the first time in Trinidad 40 years ago. It's a female. The males are much smaller. This colourful weevil makes a good subject for a book, but doesn't make very great video. Back in front of the hostel, the passionflower caterpillars have grown a lot as they engage in some dedicated munching. These crabs lived in holes amongst the hotel rooms, but they were very difficult to film. One afternoon I found large numbers of these white orchids growing on rocks right in the spray zone of the ocean. On the way back to the hotel, I found this small paper wasp nest, an interesting subject that I've been hoping to find, because it's quite easy to film. The 4 cells that have those conspicuous white caps contain pupae that will eventually emerge as adults. This wasp is making a new cell, using chewed up wood mixed with her own saliva to form paper. Once finished, she turned and laid an egg inside. The wasp on the right is just checking the temperature of the nest. She's decided it's too hot, it's in the sun at the moment, so she fans her wings to cool it down. And the same thing's happened again here. Back at the hostel, one of the most important events of the day, feeding the cats. While the local surfers are busy repairing their boards. Next morning, rainforest in the rain. Something I could have done with in Tirona. And my last view of the caterpillars as they grew even larger, still munching away. And just in front of the hostel, my final view of a butterfly, a white peacock. A butterfly of open places rather than deep forest. And so, my 10 days are up, and it's back to the airport. In goes my trusty backpack, and we're off along the beach. For the first half of the journey, the road is good. But then that changes dramatically. The incoming flight arrives from Medellin 40 minutes late. But if the weather was really bad, it wouldn't come at all. After a single night in Medellin, I headed to the beautiful Rio Claro Canyon. This is my room. And this is the view of the forest beside my room with the river below. The river lay in a beautiful marble canyon. Paths along the river ran through absolutely lovely rainforest, some of the most beautiful rainforests I've ever been in. So unfortunately, although there were lots of leaves, there was very little on them, very, very few insects, and it was really hard work finding anything to film. Those are fruits, not flowers. In fact, this was the only flower I saw, all by itself, in the forest. After hours of searching, I finally spotted something. Have you seen it? It's right in front of you now. A katydid nymph. See how it aligns its body carefully with the midrib to make itself less conspicuous. And just a few minutes later, I found this large grasshopper hanging upside down as it molted its skin. A very slow and careful process. Its body is now more or less all out. Its first act will be to eat its old skin, something I couldn't film because unfortunately it started pouring with rain. Sitting in my room one night, I was startled by what I thought was a bat flying around the light. But it was no bat, it was the biggest wingspan moth in the world, something I'd seen before in the forest in Brazil, sitting on tree trunks in the day. The large web of this social spider is something I'd also seen for the first time in Brazil many years before. The spiders live communally in this web, feeding together, feeding the babies, getting on very well generally. See the spiders on the right there feeding on a dead insect. Each of these brightly coloured tree hopper bugs is only a few millimetres long. The striking pattern is typical of warning coloration, that is, they're chemically defended, but they're also defended by these ants in exchange for a meal of honeydew. Note how the adult on the right is kicking away the intruding ant. The tiny spiky creature, middle left, is a nymph. This is a monkey hopper, a relative of the grasshoppers. Note how the back legs are splayed out flat at the sides. When I got back to the social spider web, they'd caught a butterfly in the hour or so that I'd been away. Note how they all feed happily together without any argument about who gets what. And so my final bus trip in South America, back to Bogota. The incredibly sinuous road crossed a series of mountain ridges, one after the other. I wondered at first why the bus was nearly empty, but this is why. Most Colombians choose to fly long distance. And the price difference is not very great. After a single final night at Cranky Crocs, it's off to the airport.